Hello and welcome to the, well, first, I guess, showing off of how far I've gotten in the development of this game, which is currently codenamed Voxel Space because it's made of voxels and it's supposed to be in space. That's why this is a big planet. Don't worry, they will be much bigger than this. This is just for testing purposes because I'm having all the chunks be created at runtime, so it would take like a very long time for a full-size planet to load. So I decided to go with this miniature version for now, but it shows off everything that's working. It is actually made of chunks, 16 by 16 by 16, so that when I break and place stuff, it does not glitch the heck out. You can also see if I go inside, the mesh is all one piece and all the chunks can detect chunks next to them, meaning that no resources are wasted in rendering stuff that is not necessary to be rendered. So right now it isn't too complicated, the generation. We have a basic sphere and there are layers. So you can see the outer layer here giving out to a darker stone, and then if we go in even further, you'll see that we have the core of the planet, which is all lava. Now this will glow. The next thing I'm adding to this is a lighting system and that sort of stuff. But that will be next. It's going to be a bit of work because I want each block to have a different material, and I do not know how to do that yet with a texture atlas, but I'm doing some research and figuring out how I'm going to tackle that problem. What it currently features is, of course, large planets, very good frame rate. I'm getting like, it says 60, but that's because I have it capped at 60 right now, so even when I break blocks, there is not a frame rate drop as the planet refreshes itself. You can place and break. There's different types of blocks on an atlas. I got rid of any sort of texture bleeding. They fit together perfectly, unless you go out far. Now, I'm trying to figure out why it gets white like that. I think it may be because of the way the light on the corners, but I will figure that out. I can probably fix that easily. In order to get rid of any lines between them, I had to do some texture padding, but they fit together pretty seamlessly now. These won't be the final textures, these are just things I whipped up for now, so that wouldn't look terrible. So obviously we have two types of cave generation here. One, I made it so that it looks like the planet cracks with these ridges, which are pretty awesome. You can see they're pretty thin at parts, and I can imagine if you're going on a mining trip, you'd have to kind of maneuver your way through these cracks and try not to get lost. And then there is actually a normal cave generator that using billow noise. This uses ridge noise to do the calculations, but the one using billow noise, if I don't know if this one has both of the types enabled. It's a random thing whether or not it's using both. I think this may only be used. Oh, never mind. Right here. Nope, that's more ridge noise. I do not think this has a second one enabled, but it's just like normal cave generations, holes and long chambers. But what we've got here is, so we have that cave generation going on. We also have ore generation I implemented because it's going to be necessary in the later game for there to be ore. This is uranium. Uranium. And you can define how likely the ore is to spawn, what block it spawns in. So this uranium will only spawn in this type of stone. It won't spawn at outer layers. And there's also a density system, so the least dense material goes on the outside and the most dense goes on the inside, and it currently randomly chooses what types of blocks to use. I'm currently coding in a system where once I turn this into a solar system sort of thing, there will be the sun, and then depending on how far away from the star, not sun, the planet will get a temperature given to it, which will determine what types of blocks it can have. It'll also have a lot of different variables going into the planets. I can't name them off the top of my head. I put a lot of stuff in that's to be done later. But as you can see, it works very well, and you can actually break in place without any lag, which is great. It took me a long time to get the chunks working. together and to get them to detect each other's blocks. That's what I did last, but next up I'm going to be working on lighting and having each block have a different, not a different material, but they're all going to have different, they're going to act like they have different materials. Because in Unity, if you gave every block a different material, it would be very laggy, and we don't want that. But I'll figure it out. There are different blocks you can place. I just don't have it set so that you can change it right now. This is more for testing purposes. And yes, I did put a light around the camera so that you could actually see. There is a light down here that shines on the bottom. That would have normally shined on the side, but I turned up the size of the planet. I could probably, you know, nah, I'm not gonna rebuild the entire thing. Was thinking I might just make it go bigger, but I'm going to wait to do bigger tests of it until I have the dynamic chunk loading, because right now, like I said, it generates it all at runtime, and later it's going to generate them when the player gets close enough. I'm also going to have to add a loading and saving system, which won't be too hard though. All the blocks are stored in a three-dimensional arrays, so I just have to save the arrays and load them. Not that complicated. You may ask, if that's how it works, then how are the chunks able to detect each other before they've generated? That was the big problem I was running into. So I have the main planet, the basically parent class, actually generate the entire thing. It's very fast, so that doesn't actually hurt performance. And then after it does that, the chunks each grab the part of that big array that they're going to be using. And if it's not generated yet, they just grab it from the main parent planet class. But yeah, this is just a little bit of a demo. It's working very nicely. I thought it was going to have a lot less frame rate and I was going to have to do some optimization, but it appears to be running very well. I don't know if it would run this well on lower hardware. I have a GTX 970, so it may just be because I have a nice card, but we'll see. Thank you for watching. I will be doing updates on this more often since it's actually getting to a point where you can actually like do stuff on it. Before, it was a glitchy mess and I had a fun time squashing over 50 bugs before it got to this point. But it looks very nice, and I'm excited for when I add the lighting and effects. It will look really cool, because right now it looks kind of bland. All the blocks are just bleh. It looks kind of odd, the rock being shiny. Looks like plastic. We don't want that. Goodbye.